Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
The broadcast played on every frequency. It did not ask for access. It took it. Stations, ships, and colonies with a working receiver all went silent at once. The signal cut through encrypted military channels and civilian bands alike, overriding local transmissions with the cold authority of galactic law. People noticed because everything else went silent. Then the image appeared. A Tessic arbiter filled every screen in human space, short, broad, skin like wet slate. No eyes, just that horizontal slit of a mouth barely moving as subsonic pulses translated into words. By unanimous resolution of the Sovereign Accord of Corveth, the final protocol is hereby activated against the species designated Homo sapiens. In orbit above New Caledonia, a cargo hauler's crew stopped mid-shift. On a dozen warships holding defensive positions, soldiers watched in silence. Homo sapiens is declared extinct. All biological remnants are henceforth classified as illegal entities. No legal standing, no treaty protections, no right of commerce, transit, or habitation. The arbiter's slit mouth never changed expression. The Tessic didn't do expressions. Resistance constitutes a crime against galactic order. Surrender offers no mitigation. This species no longer exists. This broadcast will repeat until acknowledgement is universal. The signal looped. It played for days. Across human space, the dying began. Not from weapons, not at first. From something quieter. Human ships approached stations they had docked at for decades and found landing bays sealed. Human currency transactions rejected. Human contracts voided mid-execution. A medical frigate carrying vaccines to the outer colonies was turned away from a refueling depot. The station manager was apologetic. His hands were tied. The registry said Homo sapiens no longer existed. He could not sell fuel to a species that was not real. The frigate drifted for 11 days before its reactor failed. Colonies that depended on imported food watched their last shipments rot in customs holds that would never open. Mining stations ran out of spare parts. Research outposts went dark one by one. Not destroyed, just forgotten. You cannot send aid to something that does not exist. The Dominion had not fired a shot. They did not need to. Extinction, it turned out, was just paperwork. Weeks passed. Human military units scattered to hidden positions. Some broke. Some surrendered and were processed. The Dominion's term for executions conducted with proper documentation. Most simply waited, bleeding resources, watching the death toll climb. Then the first transmission cut through the silence. It came from nowhere. No registered vessel, no known frequency allocation. Just a flat human voice on an open channel, broadcasting in the clear. This is Homo Fuck-Uicus Unit 1. You are dealing with the wrong species. Dominion communication officers flagged it as gibberish, some kind of final defiance from dying remnants. They logged it and moved on. 3 days later, a Tessic administrative station on the edge of Corveth space went dark. When a patrol arrived, they found the station intact. No structural damage, no bodies. Just one change. The species registry had been accessed. A new entry had been added. Homo Fuck-Uicus, classified as a hostile xenospecies of unknown origin. Unrelated to the extinct Homo sapiens. Legally distinct. Formally registered. The Tessic administrator who had made the entry was found sitting at his console, unharmed. His throat bore the faint marks of his own fingers, the gesture of binding acknowledgement. He had confirmed the entry himself. When questioned, he stated that he had been given no choice. Armed individuals had forced him to make the registration. He had followed protocol. The entry was now legal. The Dominion ordered the entry purged. 12 hours later, another station was hit. Another Tessic administrator touched his throat. Another entry propagated through the system. The name Homo fuckuicus spread through Dominion databases like a virus. Every time it was deleted, it reappeared somewhere else. Every purge was answered with another forced registration. The Dominion had built a system that ran on legal precedent, on proper documentation, on the assumption that registered species were real and unregistered species were not. Humans had simply registered themselves again, under a different name. Months later, the shuttle dropped through the thin atmosphere of an unnamed moon, running dark. No transponder, no lights, just a metal coffin falling toward a Tessic relay station that processed registry updates for the entire sector. Inside, Sergeant Major Cole Braddock checked his weapon for the third time. Habit. The rifle was fine. It had been fine an hour ago. It would be fine in another hour if he lived that long. Beside him, Corporal Darius Kowalski finished wiring a breaching charge with the casual focus of a man assembling a sandwich. His prosthetic fingers moved like he'd never lost them. 2 digits missing on the left hand. He never talked about how. Across the narrow bay, Specialist Andrei Volkov stared at a datapad, fingers twitching over keys that were not there, running calculations in his head. Volkov always ran calculations. It was the only thing that kept him still. The shuttle's pilot spoke over the intercom. 30 seconds. Braddock stood. The others followed. Their armor was scarred, patched, repainted too many times to count. Across each chest plate, the same words in stark white. Homo fuckuicus. No unit insignia. No flags. No names. 20 seconds! Kowalski hefted the breaching charge. Volkov secured his datapad and drew his sidearm. Braddock moved to the hatch. 10 seconds. The shuttle kissed the station's hull with a magnetic clang. The hatch blew. Kowalski slapped the charge against the outer plating and stepped back. The explosion was precise. A neat circle of metal peeled inward. Atmosphere screamed out into the void for 2 seconds before emergency seals kicked in. Unit 9 went through the hole. The Brawl security detail inside never had a chance. They were pack hunters by evolution, shock troops by training. Quadrupedal when they charged, bipedal when they braced. Armored carapaces, mandibles that could shear through bone. But they were positioned for external threats, watching the doors, guarding the perimeter. Unit 9 came through the ceiling. Braddock hit the first Brawl before it could turn. 2 rounds through the gap between carapace plates. The creature's high-clicking distress call was still rising when Kowalski put a 3rd round through its head. The second Brawl charged. 4 legs churning, mandibles spread wide. Volkov stepped aside like a matador and fired 3 times into its flank as it passed. The Brawl crashed into a console and did not rise. The 3rd and 4th died in the crossfire. Fast, brutal, professional. Braddock stepped over the bodies without looking down. Administrative Corps. Move. The Tessic administrator sat at its console, broad form, perfectly still. Skin like wet slate. That horizontal slit of a mouth. No eyes. It perceived them through vibration and electromagnetic fields, felt their approach before they entered the room. When Braddock appeared in the doorway, the Tessic spoke. Its subsonic pulses translated through a device on its chest. This action is illegal. Homo sapiens is an extinct species. You have no legal standing to conduct operations within Dominion space. Braddock crossed the room in 4 strides. The barrel of his sidearm pressed against the Tessic's throat. This is Homo fuckuicus Unit 9. His voice was flat, cold, recitation without emotion. We are not human anymore. You are dealing with the wrong species. The Tessic's body twitched. Tiny movements, distress. The designation Homo fuckuicus is a fraudulent entry. It will be purged from Volkov. The specialist was already at the terminal. His fingers moved across the interface with unsettling familiarity. He had learned this system when he worked for the Dominion, before the protocol, before he realized that extinction meant everyone. "Connected," Volkov said. "Registry access confirmed. Ready for entry." Braddock pressed the barrel harder. "You know what happens now." The Tessic was silent for a long moment. Its small movements continued, fingers flexing, body shifting, the distress of a creature that understood its options. Finally, it reached for the console. Species designation, Homo fuckuicus. Classification, hostile xenospecies. Legal status, registered and acknowledged. The Tessic's fingers entered the data with mechanical precision. Origin, unknown. Relation to extinct Homo sapiens, none. Volkov watched the screen. Entry confirmed. Propagating to sector network. The Tessic's hand rose to its own throat, fingers pressed against the slate-gray flesh, the gesture of binding acknowledgement. "The entry is legal," it said. "I have confirmed it." Braddock lowered his weapon. On the screen, the registry update spread outward. Relays picked up the signal. Other stations received the confirmation. Another Tessic administrator had formally acknowledged Homo fuckuicus. This relay fed the sector registry. What was confirmed here didn't just spread. It stuck. The Dominion's own system, working against itself. "Propagation at 60%, Volkov said. 70. It's moving faster than they can block it. One entry could be erased. 1,000 confirmations could not." Kowalski appeared in the doorway. "Corridor's rigged. We should move." Braddock nodded. He looked at the Tessic one last time. The creature had not moved. Still sitting. Still processing. Its system of order and law had just been violated, and there was nothing it could do. "Thank you for your cooperation," Braddock said. He did not mean it. The extraction was clean. Brawl reinforcements arrived 7 minutes after Unit 9 breached the hull. By then, Kowalski's charges had turned the main corridor into a kill zone. The creatures charged into fire and shrapnel, pack loyalty overriding tactical sense. Unit 9 moved through secondary passages Volkov had mapped from old Dominion schematics. They reached the shuttle bay as the first explosion echoed behind them. The shuttle lifted off while the station was still burning. Volkov confirmed the data on his screen. "Registry update is still propagating. They're trying to block it at the central servers, but there are too many relays. It's already in the core systems." Braddock stared out the viewport. The station shrank behind them, trailing smoke. "How long until they can purge it?" "They can't. Not anymore." Volkov's fingers stopped moving for once. "Every time they delete the entry, the acknowledgements we forced remain in the system. The more administrators we make confirm it, the harder it becomes to argue the species doesn't exist." Kowalski leaned back in his seat, eyes closed. "So, mission complete?" Braddock didn't look at him. "For now." The shuttle accelerated toward the transit point. Behind them, the moon grew smaller. The Tessic relay station was a fading ember. Weeks passed. A human freighter called the Distant Promise dropped out of transit near a neutral station in the border territories. Old Kavani design. Kavani did not care about the Dominion's politics. They cared about profit. The dock officer was a squat creature with too many limbs and a translator that gave its voice a buzzing quality. It checked the freighter's registry. "Species designation." The captain's voice came over the comm. "Homo fuckuicus?" The dock officer consulted its screen. The registry entry was there. Hostile species. Unknown origin. But registered. Legal. Docking Bay 4. Standard rates apply. The Distant Promise slid into the bay. The airlock cycled. The captain, a weathered woman with gray streaks in her hair, stepped onto the station for the first time in months. No alarms, no security forces, no arrest. She walked to the trade terminal and placed an order. Fuel cells, water purification filters, medical supplies, protein stock. The transaction processed. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the confirmation on the screen. Behind her, her crew began unloading cargo they had scrounged from dead colonies. Scrap metal, salvaged electronics, anything that could be traded. The dock officer appeared beside her, too many limbs folded in what might have been a shrug. "Business is business," it said. The captain nodded slowly. Across the frontier, the same scene repeated. Human ships docking at stations that had turned them away months ago. Trade routes reopening, supplies flowing to colonies that had been starving in the dark. And somewhere, in a battered shuttle jumping between hidden bases, Sergeant Major Cole Braddock cleaned his rifle and waited for the next mission. The war was not over, but humanity was no longer dying. That was enough, for now. The council chamber smelled of copper and old stone. Orvan architecture favored weight, massive columns, vaulted ceilings that swallowed sound, everything built to remind visitors that they stood in the presence of something ancient and immovable. Fleet Commander Kesoth Varn stood at the center of the chamber, all four arms clasped behind his back in rigid attention. His geometric scarification marked him as seventh-generation military aristocracy. His bioluminescent eye rings pulsed a steady amber, controlled anger, barely contained. Across from him, the Tessic delegation sat in perfect stillness. 3 administrators, their slate-gray forms arranged in a precise triangle. No eyes to read, no expressions to interpret, just that horizontal slit of a mouth and the subsonic hum of their translators. "Explain," Varn said, "how a species we declared extinct is now conducting trade across the frontier." The lead Tessic, a senior arbiter named Coordinator Selk, responded in that flat, translated tone. "The registry entries are valid. Homo fuckuicus is a recognized species under Dominion classification protocols." "It is not a species." Varn's secondary arms twitched. "They are humans, the same humans we erased with the protocol." "The protocol targeted Homo sapiens. Homo fuckuicus is a distinct entry, legally separate. They forced your administrators to create that entry at gunpoint. The method of entry is irrelevant." Selk's body remained perfectly still. The confirmation protocols were followed. The administrators touched their throats. The entries are binding. Varn's eye rings flared bright orange. Rage, bleeding through discipline. "Then purge them." "We have attempted purges on multiple occasions. The entry now exists across too many nodes to remove without destabilizing the registry itself." "The registry," Varn said slowly, "that your caste built. Your system, your protocols." Selk did not respond. There was nothing to say. The Tessic had designed the species registry to be robust, decentralized, resistant to tampering. They had never anticipated that someone would use those features as a weapon. Varn turned to the holographic display behind him, a map of the frontier territories, trade routes marked in flowing lines. Human, Homo fuckuicus, activity highlighted in red. They are docking at neutral stations. They are purchasing fuel and supplies. They are rebuilding. Yes, and we are doing nothing. We have filed formal requests with neutral and allied species. We have explained that Homo fuckuicus is a fraudulent designation. We have asked them to refuse commerce. And Selk's small movements increased. Distress. The responses have been unfavorable. The Kavani response arrived first. A short transmission from their trade ministry, delivered with the buzzing efficiency their species was known for. The Kavani Mercantile Collective acknowledges the Dominion's concerns regarding the species designated Homo fuckuicus. However, our commerce protocols recognize all registered species, regardless of origin or political status. The registry confirms Homo fuckuicus as a valid entity. We will continue standard trade relations. Business is business. The Yanari were more diplomatic, but no less clear. The Yanari Confederation values our partnership with the Sovereign Accord. However, we cannot selectively ignore registry entries without undermining the legal frameworks that govern interspecies relations. We respectfully decline to embargo Homo fuckuicus vessels at this time. The Krith Dominion, not allies, but not enemies, simply informed the Council that human ships were already being granted docking access within their territory. No explanation. No justification. Species after species responded with variations of the same message. The paperwork was legal. The registry was valid. They would not set a precedent of ignoring formal entries simply because the Orvan found them inconvenient. The Tessik's own system, built on the assumption that proper documentation created reality, now protected the enemy. Fleet Commander Varn read the responses in his private quarters. His eye rings burned crimson in the darkness. Shame, fury, the emotions his caste was trained to suppress, but never truly conquered. The humans had done more than survive. They had made the Orvan Dominion look weak. Every neutral species that traded with Homo fuckuicus was a reminder that the final protocol had failed. Every supply ship that docked at a human colony was proof that the Orvan military could not finish what it started. His secondary arms moved to the communication console, priority channel. Orvan High Command. This is Fleet Commander Varn. I am requesting an emergency session of the War Council. The response came within the hour. The War Council chamber was smaller than the public halls. No columns, no ceremony. Just a circular table and the 7 highest-ranking officers in the Orvan military. Varn stood before them, his scarification visible above his collar. 7th generation. Old blood. They would listen. The legal approach has failed, he said. Political pressure has failed. The Tasik cannot purge the registry. Neutral species will not stop trading. Every day that passes, the humans grow stronger. Supreme Commander Ardeth Cole, eldest of the Council, his copper skin weathered with age, folded all 4 arms on the table. What do you propose? Total military action. No more protocol. No more documentation. We find their fleet. We destroy it. We glass their colonies. We hunt every ship until there is nothing left to register. The protocol was designed to avoid such costs. The protocol has failed. Varn's eye rings pulsed. The humans found a weakness and exploited it. The entire system is now compromised. We must act before they become too strong to stop. Silence in the chamber. The council members exchanged glances. Subtle movements of secondary arms. Shifts in bioluminescent patterns. Communication without words. Finally, Ardeth Cole spoke. The Dominion has not committed to open warfare against a species since the Brenneth subjugation. The costs were significant. The costs of inaction are greater. Every day we wait, they rebuild. Every supply shipment strengthens them. Every new ship in their fleet is a ship we will have to destroy later. And if we commit our fleet and fail? Varn straightened. We will not fail. They are remnants. Scattered survivors playing games with paperwork. When they face Orvan warships, they will break. Another long silence. Then Ardeth Cole touched his own throat. Not the Tessik gesture of binding, the Orvan gesture of decision. Mobilize the fleet. Total commitment. Find the humans and end this. Varn's eye rings flared with satisfaction. It will be done. Months of trade had changed everything. The staging base at Cygnus Anchorage was proof of that. Where there had once been a handful of battered ships hiding in an asteroid field, there was now a fleet. Not large. Nothing that would intimidate the Dominion by numbers alone. But real. Destroyers. Cruisers. Carriers that had been rebuilt from salvage. Fighters packed into launch bays. Weapon systems that actually worked. Sergeant Major Cole Braddock stood on the observation deck of the heavy cruiser, Revenge, watching cargo shuttles move between ships. Ammunition transfers, fuel cells, medical supplies, everything that had once been limited, now finally flowing at scale. Behind him, Kowalski was arguing with a logistics officer about detonator specifications. The argument was technical and pointless. Kowalski would rig his charges the way he wanted, regardless of what the supply manifest said. Volkov sat in the corner, fingers moving across a data pad, always monitoring. "How many ships?" Braddock asked. Volkov did not look up. Dominion fleet mobilization suggests full commitment. Estimates based on transit signatures indicate somewhere between substantial and overwhelming. That's not a number. Because we don't have one. They're moving more ships than we've seen since the protocol. This is not a patrol. This is extermination. Braddock turned back to the viewport. Outside, a destroyer was taking on a fresh complement of missiles. The name painted on its hull. Homo Fuckuicus, Unit 12. Every ship in the fleet carried the name now. Not a joke, not defiance, just identification. This is what we are. This is what we chose. "Can we win?" Kowalski asked, appearing beside him. The logistics argument apparently resolved. Or abandoned. Does it matter? Matters to me. I've got charges to set. Want to know if I should save some for the retreat? Braddock shook his head. No retreat. We meet them head on or we die scattered. Those are the options. Kowalski nodded slowly. Head on then. The intercom crackled. Fleet-wide channel. All personnel, this is Admiral Vasquez aboard the Revenge. The Dominion Warfleet has departed Corvette Prime. They are moving to intercept our position. Estimated contact, 47 hours. The observation deck fell silent. Around the fleet, the same message played. The same silence followed. This is not a raid. The Dominion has committed everything they have to finish what the protocol started. They believe we are remnants, scattered survivors. Easy prey. Vasquez's voice was calm, the tone of a man who had made peace with what was coming. They are wrong. We have spent months rebuilding, trading, preparing. The galaxy tried to tell us we didn't exist. We wrote ourselves back into existence. Now the Dominion thinks they can erase us with guns instead of paperwork. A pause. They are about to learn the same lesson the Tessic learned. Humanity does not die when you say it does. Homo Fuckuicus does not surrender. And we are not remnants. We are what remains when you fail to kill us the first time. Another pause. Longer. All ships, prepare for fleet action. We move in 6 hours. Vasquez out. The intercom clicked silent. Braddock looked at Kowalski. Kowalski looked at Volkov. Volkov's fingers had stopped moving. For once, he had nothing to calculate. 47 hours, Braddock said. Enough time to sleep, Kowalski replied. You sleep before a fight? Always. Might not get another chance. He walked off toward the crew quarters, practical to the end. Volkov stood, datapad tucked under his arm. I'll be in the communications bay, monitoring their fleet movements. If anything changes, you'll tell me. Volkov nodded and left. Braddock remained at the viewport. Outside, the fleet continued its preparations. Ships moving into formation, shuttles ferrying last supplies, the organized chaos of an army preparing to fight. He had been a soldier for most of his life. He had survived the fall of Proxima Station. He had watched colonies burn and friends die. He had raided Tessic stations, forcing bureaucrats to acknowledge a species name that was half insult and half prayer. Now it came to this. Open battle. Fleet against fleet. No tricks. No loopholes. Just fire. His hand moved to the armor plate on his chest. The white letters had been painted over and repainted too many times. Homo Fuckuicus. He had never stopped being human. None of them had. The name was just a tool, a way to survive long enough to reach this moment. Now they had to win. The Dominion fleet emerged from transit like a wall of steel. Orvan warships in perfect formation. Massive dreadnoughts at the center, bristling with weapons. Cruisers flanking in precise geometric patterns. Carriers hanging back, ready to launch swarms of fighters. Brawl assault ships clustered in strike groups, eager for boarding actions. Fleet Commander Varn stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Sovereign Wrath, watching the sensor displays populate with enemy contacts. The human fleet was smaller, much smaller. A handful of cruisers, a scattered screen of destroyers. Fighters that looked cobbled together from salvage. His secondary arms folded behind his back. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "They came to fight," his tactical officer observed. "They had no choice. We would have hunted them regardless. This way, they'd die with some dignity." "Shall I order the attack?" Varn studied the formation. The human ships were holding position, not advancing. Waiting. No. Let them see what they face. Let them understand what is about to happen. His eye rings glowed steady amber. Controlled. Patient. "Then we end this." Across the void, the human fleet waited. On the bridge of the Revenge, Admiral Vasquez watched the same sensor displays. Dominion contacts filling the screen. More ships than they had ever faced. More firepower than they could hope to match. He keyed the fleet-wide channel one more time. "All ships, all hands. You know what we are. You know why we're here. Just do your jobs and trust the person next to you. That's how we've made it this far." A pause. Homo fuck-uicus does not surrender. He closed the channel. The fleets began to move. The first volley turned the void into fire. Dominion dreadnoughts opened up with plasma lances and kinetic batteries firing in perfect sequence. The wall of energy crossed the gap between fleets in seconds. The human destroyer. Defiant took the first hit. A plasma lance carved through its midsection, venting atmosphere and crew into space. The ship broke apart before anyone could scream. 2 more destroyers died in the same volley. A cruiser lost its engine section and began to drift, powerless. The Dominion formation advanced, relentless, pouring fire into the smaller fleet. On the bridge of the Revenge, Admiral Vasquez gripped the command rail as the deck shuddered beneath him. "Damage report. Forward shields at 60%. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Casualties mounting. Return fire, all batteries." The Revenge's guns answered. Across the fleet, every human ship that could still shoot was shooting. Missiles streaked toward the Dominion line. Plasma bursts flared against Orvan shields. 3 decks below, Kowalski was running. The weapons bay was a chaos of shouting and sparks. A power conduit had blown, killing 2 technicians and crippling the port missile battery. Kowalski shoved a damage control team aside and dove into the wreckage. "Give me a bypass kit, now!" Someone pressed the tool into his hand. His prosthetic fingers moved fast and sure, rerouting power around the fried junction. The deck shook again. Another hit. He ignored it. 30 seconds, he said to no one. "Give me 30 seconds. The missile battery hummed back to life. "Port battery online," the weapons officer reported to the bridge. "Resuming fire." Kowalski was already moving to the next crisis. In the communications bay, Volkov worked across 3 screens at once. Tactical data poured in from across the fleet. Ship positions, damage reports, enemy movements. He processed it all, feeding updates to the bridge, to other ships, to anyone who could use the information. "Dominion formation holding," he said into his headset. "They're not adapting. They're relying on superior firepower." Admiral Vasquez's voice came back. "Can we exploit that?" "Their formation is tight. Concentrated fire on a single point could create a gap, but we'd have to sacrifice ships to draw their attention." A pause. "Which ships?" Volkov checked the data. The numbers were brutal. Every option cost lives. The destroyer screen. If they push forward and engage the Dominion right flank, the cruisers can concentrate fire on the flagship. The destroyers won't survive that. No, they won't. Another pause. Longer. Send the order. Volkov's fingers stopped for just a moment. Then he typed the command. The destroyer. Wolf received the order first. Her captain read it twice, then once more. The words did not change. He keyed the ship-wide channel. All hands. We have been ordered to advance on the Dominion right flank. Our mission is to draw fire and create an opening for the cruiser assault. We will not survive this engagement. Silence on the channel. The crew waited. I will not order anyone to die. If you want to evacuate, the pods are available. No one will stop you. No one will judge. More silence. Then a voice from engineering. Pods are for people who plan to live, Captain. I've got work to do. Another voice. Weapons. Batteries are hot. Ready when you are. Another. Navigation. Course plotted. Awaiting your command. The captain closed his eyes for a moment. All ahead full. It has been an honor. The Wolf surged forward. Behind her, the destroyers, Hammer and Spite followed. 3 ships against a wall of Dominion steel. They did not last long. But they lasted long enough. Fleet Commander Varn watched the human destroyers charge his right flank and felt something he had not expected. Respect. They knew they were going to die. They came anyway. Not fleeing, not surrendering, attacking. His tactical officer was less impressed. Suicide run. They're trying to disrupt our formation. Let them. Concentrate fire and... The first missiles struck. Not from the destroyers, from behind them. The human cruisers had used the distraction to reposition. Now they were firing everything they had at the Sovereign Wrath. Varn's ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. Damage reports flooded the bridge. Shields failing on the port side. Engine section hit. We're losing maneuvering capability. Return fire. Targeting systems are... Another impact. The bridge lights flickered. A support beam collapsed, crushing a junior officer. Varn's secondary arms gripped the command rail as the deck tilted. Fleet status, he demanded. Confusion, Commander. Other ships are awaiting orders. But our communications array is damaged. Transmissions are delayed. The perfect formation was fracturing. Ships that had moved in lockstep for generations were now hesitating, unsure. The chain of command had been built around the flagship. With the flagship crippled, the chain was breaking. Varn's eye rings flared crimson. Get me communications. Now. On the Revenge, Braddock felt the ship lurch and knew they had been hit again. He was in a corridor on Deck 6, helping a damage control team seal a hull breach. The emergency foam was holding, but barely. Another hit in the same section, and they would lose the entire deck. His earpiece crackled. Volkov's voice. Sergeant Major, boarding pods incoming. Port side, decks, 4 through 7. Braddock dropped the foam canister. How many? Multiple contacts. Brawl assault configuration. He grabbed his rifle from where it leaned against the wall. All security teams, converge on port side access points. Prepare for close quarters. He was already running. The brawl came through the hull like insects burrowing into flesh. Their boarding pods punched through weakened armor plating and disgorged shock troops directly into the corridors. Quadrupedal forms charged down narrow passages, mandibles spread wide, carapace plates lifted for impact. The first human defenders died in seconds. The brawl did not slow down. Pack hunters, all forward momentum. No fear. Braddock reached the junction at Deck 5 just as the first wave hit. He dropped to one knee, rifle up, and fired 3 times. The lead brawl stumbled, rounds punching through the gap between carapace plates. The creature crashed into the wall, still clicking, still trying to advance. Braddock fired twice more. It stopped moving. Behind him, a security team took up positions. Not enough people. Not enough guns. But they held. "Funnel them," Braddock said. They charged straight. Use the corners. The brawl kept coming. Kowalski heard the fighting and grabbed his kit. He was not a frontline soldier. He was an engineer. But he knew the ship better than anyone, and he knew where the brawl would go. He reached the junction at Deck 6 before they did. The corridor was narrow. Perfect. He worked fast. Plasma charges rigged to motion sensors. Tripwires connected to fragmentation packs. A pressure plate wired to a canister of industrial adhesive. The first brawl rounded the corner. The adhesive canister exploded, coating it in a substance designed to seal hull breaches. The creature thrashed. Legs stuck to the floor. The second brawl charged over its trapped pack mate. The motion sensor triggered. The plasma charge turned the corridor into an inferno. When the smoke cleared, Kowalski was already setting the next trap. The battle outside had shifted. With the Sovereign Wrath crippled, Dominion coordination was failing. Some ships continued their advance. Others held position, waiting for orders. A few began to pull back, uncertain. The human fleet exploited every gap. Cruisers that should have been overwhelmed found room to maneuver. Fighters that should have been swatted aside slipped through holes in the Dominion formation. Ships that should have been dying were still fighting. On the bridge of the Revenge, Vasquez watched the tactical display update. Dominion flagship is venting atmosphere. Their formation is fragmenting. Press the attack. All ships, concentrate fire on damaged vessels. Don't let them regroup. The human fleet surged forward, not a desperate last stand. A calculated push, taking advantage of chaos. The Dominion line began to break. Fleet Commander Varn stood on a bridge filled with smoke and corpses. Half his officers were dead. The rest were wounded or struggling to keep failing systems alive. The Sovereign Wrath was dying around him, and he could not stop it. His communications officer managed to patch together a working channel. "Commander, incoming transmission. Human frequency." On speaker, the voice that came through was flat, cold. No triumph. No mockery. "This is Admiral Vasquez of the Terran vessel Revenge. Your fleet is broken. Your flagship is crippled. Further resistance will result in complete destruction." Varn's eye rings pulsed. Rage. Shame. Defiance. "I do not negotiate with extinct species." A pause on the channel. "Homo fuckuicus does not surrender. Do you?" Varn looked around his shattered bridge. His crew, those who remained, looked back at him. Waiting. Trusting. The Orvan did not surrender. It was not in their blood, not in their tradition, not in anything they had built across generations of military aristocracy. But the Orvan also did not throw away lives for pride alone. That was what separated them from the brawl. His secondary arms unclenched from the command rail. "All ships," he said quietly, "cease fire. Withdraw. Commander, the battle is lost. We preserve what remains. Withdraw." Across the void, Dominion ships began to pull back. Some immediately, some reluctantly, some not at all. Those were destroyed. The human fleet did not pursue. They held position, weapons ready, watching the enemy retreat. Varn remained standing until the Sovereign Wrath's emergency power failed. Then he sat in the darkness and waited for whatever came next. On the Revenge, the fighting had stopped. The brawl boarding parties were dead. All of them. Pack loyalty meant they did not retreat, did not surrender, did not stop. So they died in corridors rigged with explosives, in junctions held by soldiers who refused to give ground, in compartments that became tombs. Braddock walked through Deck 5, stepping over bodies. Human, brawl, mixed together in the democracy of death. His rifle was empty. He did not remember when he had fired the last round. Kowalski sat against a wall, wrapping a bandage around his left forearm. The prosthetic fingers on his other hand were splashed with something that was not human blood. "You good?" Braddock asked. "Good enough." "You?" Braddock nodded and kept walking. Volkov was still at his console when Braddock found him. The communications bay was damaged. A support strut had collapsed, killing one technician. But Volkov had kept working. He was still working now, even though the battle was over. "Final count," he said without looking up. "Dominion losses significant. Fleet combat capability destroyed. They won't recover from this for a long time." "Our losses?" Volkov's fingers paused. "Significant." Braddock nodded. He had expected that. "The war?" "Over. The Dominion Council is already receiving reports. When they understand what happened here, they'll sue for peace. They have no choice." "And Homo fuck-uicus?" Now Volkov looked up. His eyes were tired, red-rimmed, but something flickered in them. Something that might have been satisfaction. "A legal fiction that served its purpose. We don't need it anymore." Braddock stood there for a moment, processing, letting it sink in. Then he walked away. The rumor spread through the fleet before any official announcement. Someone on the destroyer, Relentless, started it. A crew member who found a can of white paint in a storage locker and made a decision. He crossed out the words, "Homo fuck-uicus" on his chest plate. Underneath, he wrote one word, "Human." Within minutes, it was happening on every ship. Soldiers found paint, found markers, found anything that would leave a mark. They gathered in corridors and hangar bays and anywhere they could stand together, and they changed the name on their armor. Not a celebration, not a ritual, just a quiet statement. We never stopped being human. Admiral Vasquez made one final broadcast. Not to the fleet, to the galaxy. Every frequency, every channel. Open transmission, no encryption. He did not give a speech, nor declare victory. He did not list the dead or claim the future. He said one word, "Human," then silence. Across the frontier, the message propagated. Neutral stations received it. Kavani traders heard it. Yanari diplomats noted it. Even the shattered remains of the Dominion fleet, limping home in defeat, picked up the signal. One word. One species. Still here. The Dominion had said humans should lose. Humans had changed the rules. And when the rules stopped mattering, they had won anyway. Not because they were stronger or smarter. They simply refused to stop. The galaxy had tried to erase humanity with paperwork. Humanity had rewritten the paperwork. Because if you tell a species it no longer exists, you had better be sure you are right.
Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.